what? Before we go any further, because what episode are we?
15.
Episode 15 of Menopause.
Let me put this on then. Okay, you ready? So we are episode 15 of Menopause.
Is this not where I normally do a little jingle? That's about as jingly as it gets this week. So how are you, lovely lady? It's been a bit of a roller coaster.
It's been a minute between you and me, and it's also been a blooming ride.
So how is your menopause, or how has your, I don't know if I say, how's menopause been? How's life been? What's been going on?
It's more life, I think. I'm not sure that the menopause is to blame for a lot of life events. On the menopause front, I have had another little bit of a hit in confidence.
Have you? I saw your post the other day. That was a lovely post.
And I think it's slightly related to the life event, which is my dog dying. So for anyone who's been following the podcast, my lovely big dog,
Rocker, who used to come in and snort and fart and
do all of that.
He made it sound actually quite
pleasant.
Quite saucy.
But he reached the end of his little journey on this lovely earth. So we had to make horrible decisions, which I really didn't want to make, but we did have to. So
you did the right thing.
So that life event has kind of knocked me a bit for six, really. He has been my rock, really, over a number of years and through a lot of life events. And I think that has thrown me a bit. And my horse, by the same, almost in the same time scale, has suddenly gone, oh, I've got lots of energy and I'm going to play around and I'm going to do this, etc. And has been playing around, almost throwing me off.
And you're maybe not best placed to deal with it.
I'm not best placed to deal with it. So it's kind of translated into me feeling a little bit self-aware and conscious and a bit, lacking in confidence, I suppose. Which has been around for a while, but it's also been coupled with going, do you know what? Okay, I can recognise it, but there's been also a shift, a kind of change because of his departure, I think, because of Rocker not being here. I think I've also had a bit of a, okay, right, I really need to take a stand here, and this is the year to say my piece and really be me and not be afraid to be me, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Does that make sense?
I always thought that you did that anyway.
I kind of did, but
I thought there was a real, because I read your Facebook post where you were speaking about the lack of confidence, and also that whilst there was this element of comparing yourself to younger people in the industry, etc., 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 there was also this other side that was sort of saying, but I can do that, and I know I can do all these things, but do I want to?
But do I want to do it?
Because I'm actually craving the solitude and the peace and the simplicity and the space. But on the confidence thing, is it? So you mentioned it when you're riding your horse. Is it related to particular situations, or
galloping?
Just in general?
No, it's galloping. So he gets spooked, and that's what young horses do. They get spooked, and he's a pureblood, and which is like, they're really excitable. Basically, they have two speeds. One is like really slow, almost immobile, and one is Ferrari fast, right? So they have that kind of, they could survive a zombie apocalypse, but they'd be scared of a leaf blowing in the next village.
He's young.
That's the kind of horses that they are. They're just like that, and that's fine. I know that they're like that, but he's been messing around quite a lot, and it's when he gallops. And this is what's happened. And I talked to my partner about this today. It actually projects me back to the 13-year-old girl who had a horse, who was really not capable of looking after that horse.
Right. Okay.
And I think it pushes me back to that failure time. And the fear the vision I had in my head of the horsewoman wasn't a reality of what was happening, and I wasn't managing that well, and I hid it. A lot of it I hid, and so a lot of people never knew that I was like shit scared sometimes to go out and ride.
Horrible.
So that, I think, it's projected me back. And interestingly enough, this year is the year. It's called the year of 9. So
you mentioned that,
If you add the numbers of 2025 together, it makes 9, right? And 9 has lots of numerological significance. That's quite difficult to say, numerological significance. And essentially, there are a couple of things that have come out from what you can read lots of different things into it, but there are two big things that have come out for me. One is, well, three things, let's say. One is you need to be the most authentic version of yourself, and you really need to stand in that and own it.
Hold on a minute. So why has this come out of the 9 thing? So then what does the 9 mean?
It's to do with so numerology is a vast subject that I know very, very little about.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to
know more than me
to be an expert on it. But each number and each combination of number has a kind of energetic influence on us, or like your birth date, for example. Those numbers in your birth date, the time you were born, etc. It's not quite astrology, but it's very interrelated.
Okay.
But it's almost like your path is predestined.
And the significance of 9, the significance of this year is what? So this is a year to be doing what?
Well, it's interesting enough, it's also the year of the snake.
And I knew that. Not that I know what that means, but
well, it's the Chinese year of the snake, and each animal, again, like the numbers, has a significance.
Yeah.
And the year of the snake is all about change. It's all about evolution.
Shedding the skin,
it's all about shedding your skins, exactly, and being this new version of yourself, the version that you choose to be, this authentic side of things.
Well, that's very relative to menopause and middle age.
Very relative to menopause and middle age. And the other thing that I was like, wow, well, that makes sense now. And it's only this week that I read this thing as well about the 9. It throws you back to things that you have not sorted in your life.
Ooh.
So like past trauma, past, failures, just anything that's niggling around. And I'm like, well, that's it then, right? So it's throwing me back to this 13-year-old girl to go, no, I'm not her anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I can do this. I can stand in my strength. I can sort this out. But it's not going to happen overnight. So my instructor at the stables quite rightly said, just own the successes each time. Go back to some basics. Just go back to walking and go through walking pace, Do this. Just really, and then the little things that you do achieve, go, my God, that's really good. And celebrate them. Which I thought, well, that's great. So I'm doing that at the moment. And that's a number 9 thing. And this is another really good one. Number 9 is all about decluttering.
Oh, I know loads of people are doing that because it's like frugal February, and so that's sort of a lot of people are linking that in with using it as get rid of all your crap.
Exactly. David's done a whole wardrobe sort out, partly due to the fact that he's put some weight on and he can't get into his clothes anymore. But he actually
nobody needs to know that.
He said it actually looks like I'm moving out. He's not got anything left in the wardrobe.
Oh, bless him.
But I'm looking at his side of the wardrobe and I'm looking at mine going, I think I might need to be doing the same thing this weekend because I've got so much stuff in my wardrobe.
Oh, bless.
Okay, so there's a decluttering. And it's all relevant because we wanted to talk about change today.
Yes.
And evolution, and the fact that it is changing doesn't mean that it's wrong.
No.
And doesn't mean that it's broken, and it doesn't mean, but it can be messy and it can be painful. And I thought that actually
is, isn't it?
What I've just sort of said fits in really well with all of that.
Yeah. I've been having loads of conversations along these lines with a bunch of wonderful ladies that I'm working with at the moment. And we've been, because you know what it's like when there's a group of you, you're all going through, one of you's having a good day. Yeah. And seems to be achieving everything. Yeah. And at the same time, there'll be somebody in that group who's having an absolute shocker. Who's, thinking, well, sod you, I can't even get out of bed kind of thing. And so we've been having lots of conversations around what does growth really look like? What does it really mean to rise? And the reality is that change and growth often looks like the complete opposite of that, doesn't it? Sometimes it's in order to, I guess it's like the shedding of the skin thing. I mean, let's face it, that's got to be blooming painful. we were linking it to the rise.
About the snake again, are we? I'm not sure about the snake.
We were linking it to the rising of the phoenix because it's like, that's a lovely visual, isn't it? But then you think, but to get to that point, you've gone through that burnt bird. sitting on the fire.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
there is an element of
yeah.
that, isn't it? To get to the good stuff, invariably, you have to go
I
through
always
some messy
remember
shit.
one of my teachers, Shiva Ray, saying to me, and I was about to really go down the divorce route. So this was before we'd even really voiced it to, you know, myself and my ex-husband. And I was about to go down that route, and we had 2 young children and blah, blah, blah. She turned to me and she said, at some point, Charlotte, you have to walk over the fire.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, you just do.
But
There's no
like,
other way around it.
It's like what you're doing with the horse, isn't it? You will master Prince, is it Prince?
It's Prince Rico. So we call him Rico for the simple reason that we used to have a prince in the stables. And so as to not mix the two up, we call him Rico. But
this will turn out to be a good thing, but in order for that to happen, you're having to face your old demons, aren't you? And that's not easy.
No, it's not
easy. It's only by facing them that you're going to get to the lovely next bit. And you are going to master him. And you are going to be, you're no longer going to be that scared girl.
I'm just trying not for 2 reasons. I'm trying not to fall on the ground, you know, be bucked off and like fall. One, because it's really painful when you fall off a horse. It's really painful. I have a helmet and a back protector. Big animals. But the second reason is when we fall off, we have to make a cake, and I can't bake.
Oh, sod that. So if you're feeling shit about yourself because you've fallen off the horse, and then you have to really shit cake. That's maybe not a confidence builder. No, that reminds me of when I used to have to send cakes to Mac's school.
Oh my God! I have a God. I'm going to tell you a story about that. So I actually bumped into her today as well, but I won't name who it is. But I had to do the same thing because our kids went to the same school, right? So I had to do the cake thing, and I went to Lidl and I bought muffins. Good on you. And I was like, I'm not even going to bother. I just can't. I'm good at many things, but cake baking is mine really disaster. Yeah. So I bought the muffins from Lidl and I made a box. So it made
you lied at the school.
Muffins. I thought this is brilliant, you know. So I'll just do that. And then, and so I took them to the shop like we were supposed to do up in Sandford so that they'd take them to be sold and blah, blah, blah.
Love it.
And the same morning, this person put on Facebook a photo of her muffins that she'd made at home. And she had pre-ordered, not only were they gorgeous, she'd ordered edible icing sugar Saint Foy logos.
Oh, sod off.
And put them on the muffins and posted that as a photo. And I went, oh F off. Yeah. I went to Lidl to get my muffins. And underneath, I'm going to say this because this is a podcast and a YouTube thing that isn't watched by millions, but I don't actually care because this is a really funny joke. And underneath, her husband wrote, what's better than licking a muffin?
Oh.
And wife put, don't you dare put the answer underneath here. So I private messaged the husband and go, what is the answer? And it's licking a muff out.
Well, you gotta love the dance to bring it back down to
really but funny. And it brought it right back down to reality. It was like, thank you. That makes you lose better.
Love it. Oh God, yeah. That's those way to make you feel really crap. Those school things where you had to, you know.
I felt like
I did in those years when the kids were little, showing up at the school gate. I used to feel like the clown, the bumbly Brit abroad, that like, you know.
That Bridget Jones line in I think it's the first film. I can't remember the new ones come out.
I have to see that.
That's a weekend one. That is. But I think it's the first one. She said, you don't have to make me feel inferior. I already do a really good job myself. Yeah. And I kind of felt like that every time.
Oh, me too. Me too.
The French women had a code. They all had a secret kind of, they didn't really have WhatsApp groups at the time, but they all had a secret like WhatsApp group. They all knew what to bring, what to do.
I even used to find that they would be saying something and nobody would ever ask me to join in, but I'd try. And I would say the same
thing. In the background.
They'd all be laughing at whatever so-and-so said. I would say the same thing and the conversation would stop. And it was like that, you know, that, what is the American Werewolf in London? They walk into the bar and it all goes quiet and you just stood there thinking, okay, ground, swallow me up now.
And I'd love to put them in the same scenario in the UK at the school game.
It was harsh,
Because that would be,
harsh.
you know, a really interesting, you know, way to
I invariably
to
felt like dirt on the shoe when I showed up at the school. You know, it was just that look of just, you know, and it was like, what?
Yeah.
And then the cake was just that added
thing. Exactly. Yeah. So, and I think this idea of confidence and feeling inferior at certain situations, we really, nobody, I don't think, and I think we're not alone, I'm not alone in this. Nobody needs anyone else to add anything because we're such harsh critics of ourselves all the time. And
for sure.
You know, and I think this year of the 9, this year of the snake, I'm trying to own more of who I am and stand my ground. I'll give you an example of this, and this is a today thing as well. So I organise a festival for women in Provence with a friend of mine, but this was my idea. This is my festival that I created, and I'm super proud of it. It's the Women's Spirit Festival, and I had this idea in a dream. And a few years ago, I went to somebody who I thought could really run this festival with me. I'm going to cut a really long story short. She basically tried to steal the festival from me, took it on board as her idea, all of those kinds of things. And but it was my festival, right? Anyway, I cut my ties with this person, and it was all up in Paris. And I started something in Provence, and we're now doing our 4th year this year. So it's still my festival. And my friend Kat, who makes all these lovely malas that you can see in the YouTube
get
thing.
along really well.
We do. She's like a sister, an older sister to me. She's just a beautiful person. And I love organising a festival with her. And we're pretty good at it. We've always paid ourselves a small amount of money, which, if you know about festival organisation, that's no mean feat. And we're really proud of it. And this year we wanted to relook the festival and give it a little makeover. So we've invited a young woman to help us out, who's part of the clan, part of the tribe. She's done the various things with us in the past. But the other day, 2 days ago, I think it was, she did a story on Instagram about the festival, and she didn't mention me.
Oh,
right. So she talked as if it was kind of her festival, and she was talking about the market. Basically, she mentioned very briefly, Kat, not a lot, and she tagged me at the bottom of the story.
She
tiny thing.
Thinking, but
I think she wasn't thinking, and it wasn't necessarily intentional.
No.
But not only that, she mentioned people who'd never even been to the festival before, and they were just doing the market this year and everything. So in the past, I'd have gone, oh, it doesn't matter. You know, she didn't mean it, kind of thing. But I thought, no, I'm not doing that this year. I'm really not doing that. I'm actually going to make a stand. So I left her a message and I said, look, this is not an ego thing, but this is about honouring the origins of things, you know? And I worked really hard to create this festival right at the beginning, and I still work really hard. And it's my festival at the end of the day. And Kat's very good at mentioning everything like that. Laura, who now manages the Bliss Festival in Bordeaux, she always mentions me. That's important.
It is important.
Honour the origins of things.
It is important. As I mean, I don't know, but yes.
Do you know what I mean?
Good on you for saying something. No, I'm the same. I would I think I'm getting better at that too. Just
are you?
I think.
Do you think that's this year, or do you think that's the during?
I think these last few years, as we've spoken about, there's been loads of change going on, and I think a big part of it is. It is. It was prompted by menopause and the changes going on with menopause. But I see it all the time. Women get to this point and you just think, life's short. We don't necessarily have, I want to make the most of who I am and what I have whilst I still have it. So enough pretending, enough. Not that I think before I was consciously pretending anything, but I had a tendency to go with the flow, do what other people wanted, keep the peace. I think that goes hand in hand with that middle piece, especially if there's kids involved and stuff like that. And now I just think actually, no, there's a time and a place for going with the flow. There's also a time and a place for honouring my needs as well. And I'm getting a lot better about that. Not so worried to say what I think in a nice way when it needs to be said. Whereas before, I didn't.
No.
And then it would all come out wrong. You know what I mean? I then snap and it would come out
Yeah.
wrong. Whereas now I'm more inclined to just
I'd say it really calmly, and I stand in my piece. And I actually thought that my friend Kat would not agree, but she did, and it was really funny. And she'd already left a message almost in the same kind of tack, because she said, "Oh, I was quite flustered when I saw it, because I was like, oh, something feels wrong about it." And although she wasn't intentionally doing it like that, it's like, there's got to be a point where you honour the source of things, you know.
And that's nothing bad. You bringing that up is nothing
No.
bad at
She didn't take it
all.
badly
No.
either. She didn't take
You
it
would
badly.
just take it as a sign of, if presented in the right way, you would
Yeah.
take it well, wouldn't it? Because I'm sure she never meant anything bad by it.
No.
But I would have been like you before, where I thought, oh, there's no point in saying she wouldn't mean it. She's not. And then you just end up letting things go that in a certain direction that you don't necessarily want to go in. And then afterwards you kick yourself because it was kind of your fault for letting it go that way in the first place.
Exactly. And I'm just fed up. I think this year I've just gone, do you know what? I'm just fed up of not saying what I'm feeling, you know. And it's not that I haven't done it in the past, but I've probably done it more nicely and subtly, let's say, as opposed to just going, I don't agree with that. Actually, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or just cutting ties with things. That's like the decluttering, isn't it? It also applies, I think, to people.
But I've got loads of girlfriends similar age who seem to be doing the same thing.
Yeah,
it's like,
and
no,
do you think that's a menopause thing, or do you think that's also the atmosphere that we're living in at the moment?
Maybe a bit of both. I think a lot of it goes hand in hand with menopause, midlife, that whole
I think so.
Just enough. Now you've got, I don't know, I'm this generalization, but you're more, I'm not going to say I've got less energy, but I'm more selective about how I want to spend it, how I want to spend my time, how I want to spend my money, you know, everything really. And most of the women I know are going through something quite similar.
Do you know a comedian in France called Florence Foresti?
No.
She's so super funny. She does a whole sketch about the menopause. It's quite a recent sketch because like many comedians, she sort of follows what she's going through and she shares what she's going through. So she's obviously in this phase now of menopause, postmenopause, whatever it happens to be for her. And she does this whole sketch, and it's like being a teenager, but with a credit card.
I love it.
So it's like, oh, I've got all these hormones going on and all these things happening, but I can actually pay my way out of some of these things.
And work hard and stuff.
It's just quite fun.
But I used to, because I must admit, I used to be much more inclined. This is almost embarrassing, but I know loads of women do it. In the past, I was thinking, I can't really buy that. You know, it's not really in the family budget. No, what will Paul say? So, you know, I'd maybe buy it and then I'd sneak it in the bottom of the wardrobe.
Oh my God, I've got a friend who does exactly the same thing.
Whereas now, it's like,
she's got her parcels from Toast.
What's an old one?
Which is a really expensive, like, fashion thing in the UK. She delivered to me.
Yes, yeah.
I think I didn't buy it.
Or it'd be like, oh no, just a cheap one from a second-hand shop. You know, you're like,
taking the labels off
anything. The labels off, they're all in the bathroom bin. But then now I'm more inclined to just come in and go, you know, and I know I'll get the same look of like, what you've been buying now. But yes, you know, multicolored bikini that I'm never going to wear because I can. I feel like it. Feather earrings.
Oh my God. Well, the idea for this originally for this episode was to do with this phrase "queenagers," and I've forgotten her name. I think she's called Jenny.
I can't remember. She's good. It's sort of she's really good. McCall's
she was on Davina McCall's latest, one of the latest podcasts. Before she had her brain surgery, I think the interview was before that.
Oh, was it?
I'm pretty sure it was. And it's a woman who was a really senior journalist in the UK who had done everything from a really young age
and worked in the high up in a male environment, wasn't she?
And from in her early 20s actually. So she'd had a massive career already and done incredible interviews. But bit by bit, she was kind of being
she just got to a point where her face didn't fit anymore.
Her face didn't fit the job.
Yeah.
And she kind of...
That's harsh, huh?
That's a harsh one.
A harsh one to take, isn't it?
Like
especially when it's an aging face and you're at that point, as you say, with the confidence anyway. It's like,
And she went through it. She really did go through it. She went through this whole... She lost her job.
Yeah.
And she found herself with a lot of time on her hands. And she went through it. She went to yoga classes, all sorts of different stuff to try and find herself again.
Yeah.
And she came out with various things. She now has a huge, like, I think it's a charity or a company. No, it's a company. She started a company. She calls everybody Queen Agers, which I love.
I thought of you when
I love it because I've always, even before I knew about this phrase, I've always said that this is my queen phase.
Yeah.
Because in yoga, they often, and in sacred texts, they often talk about, maiden, mother, and crone as being the 3 phases of the female life. But I don't feel like I'm in a crone phase.
Oh, no.
I don't feel like I'm there.
Yet, no.
I did a course a few years ago.
Maybe our partners will something different to say about it, but we ain't crones.
I'm not a crone. And I did this course recently called Haggitude as well. And I prefer the hag word as opposed to crone. But I'm not there yet.
No, you're not quite hag either.
I'm not there. I'm in my queen phase.
Yeah.
And I love that. And she started coining this Queen Agers.
And we've had loads of conversations along the lines of how you start to revert back to how you felt when you were a teenager. Remember interests you had when you were a teenager.
Well, like the horse scenario. Horse scenario.
Look to that goes on. You start to remember who you are again.
I mean, in the stables, this is quite interesting as well. In the stables, I was talking to a lady today, an English lady who's only just started coming, and she was like, "Oh, I just had the horses when I was younger, and blah, and I really want to, get into it again, and my daughter's into it, thank goodness, blah blah blah." She said, it's just that memory of it all, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I do classes with 10, 11, 12-year-olds, and I'm in the class with them. And honestly, I am 10, 11, and 12 when I'm in the class. I'm not a nearly 55-year-old woman.
I
am that little girl.
This won't surprise you, but I really wanted a horse. But, like we were council estate, there wasn't really room for the horse.
But as much as you tried to squeeze the shed.
I suggested that. I said we could have a wee pony and that, but mum and dad weren't up for it, But and even lessons are horse riding is a bit like skiing, isn't it? It's an expensive sport, so it wasn't really for us. But I used to go down to the local stables and help out and muck out and everything like that, and for that, you got to, at the end of the day, you got to sort of ride the horses back to the paddock and things like that. And I say, right, this is the girl from the council estate that's never had any lessons. So I would sit on the horse and just, follow. But I remember for my birthday or something, I got a horse riding lesson. And mum and dad came to watch. And in the arena, how you've got the sort of the visitors bit where you can sit and watch. They were in there. And I'd been giving it, I'd been saying, every night I'd come home, I was like, that's really good. I was riding the horse back to So they came to watch me and they sat there. And I got put on this like old Dobbin kind of... He wouldn't move.
Oh, no.
He just sat there, and my mum and dad still laugh not dad anymore, but still think about that. When we think about that, we wet ourselves because they were sitting there watching. And all I did for the hour was stand in the middle of the arena, and my horse pooed. He pooed again, and he didn't move. No, that was my only horse riding.
Oh, stop! I'm gonna have to sort you out for horse riding.
So I need to, speaking about going back and redeeming that, I need to
go through that. This is the year of the 9. You're going to do it. Don't do it right now because all the horses are nuts at the moment.
Yeah, it might make me feel worse.
They're really mad. They're mad, honestly. Yesterday, I wasn't down in the stables, but yesterday, because it's nice and warm down there in the day, that we started doing little jumps again to get the horses, moving and stuff. But they get super excited by it. And I wasn't there, so a friend of mine put my horse into the paddock. And from the paddock, you can see part of the sort of manege, this little arena bit that you call it. Particularly the back bit where they put some of the jumps as well, or just 1 or 2 of the jump things, right? And I don't know if it was he was trying to show off or got excited because the others were jumping. he was going nuts round and round in the paddock and jumping up, and he was making the horses.
They were all freaking out.
Just freaking
But
out.
would he be in his teenage years then? How old would he
No, he's
be?
not teenage yet.
Oh, is he not?
He's not quite teenage.
Okay.
Well, he's probably borderline because he's coming up for 5, so he's probably borderline.
He's a teenager and you're a teenager.
Hormonal, he is.
The two of you.
Yeah. So I'm having to. But then, and my friend is definitely more elderly queen age, who was trying to walk him back from the paddock, and he was so excited. He was spinning around, and she's really calm, thankfully, and she's just laughing, going, "Oh, here we go."
No, I'm not going on him. I need a wee what?
We've gone mad because it's been so cold for 3 months, right? And all of a sudden we've got some rays of sunshine, some heat. So they think it's spring, summer. They're going mad. They're going nuts. So don't come down just yet until they're a bit calmer.
No. If I need to get over this this childhood scarring, I need to. I'll pick my moment. But anyway,
coming back to the menopause, and this is a kind of like, it's not a last question, but let's kind of bring it back to the menopause and this idea that I mentioned at the beginning. When change happens, it's often painful.
Yes.
And when something does change, and it can be quite radical, but it can be small, does that mean you're broken and lesser?
Oh, no. It sometimes feels like that at the time.
Doesn't it?
Admittedly. But I don't know about you, but my experience of any change, I can't think of a single change really that hasn't worked out just fine. You know, it doesn't necessarily feel like it when you're going through it. You think of jobs. Speaking of jobs, we lost our job at the start of the pandemic. Granted, I wasn't, a newspaper editor, but still at the time, it's huge. It's a big hit.
And were you fearful? Were you?
Well, there was
happy? What happened with the change?
It was
a big weird time.
It was
as well.
Twofold, wasn't it? It's kind of both of us. So it was the entire family income gone in one hit, and that's scary.
Yeah.
It was at the start of the pandemic, so it's not like you can just go out and get another job. There was the whole, oh my goodness, is it because I'm a middle-aged menopausal woman and I'm crap at my job now? I can't keep. There was that entered my head, not for long, admittedly, but very quickly I saw it as a good thing. It spurred me on to go, right, okay, this is an opportunity. You would never have left otherwise. It gives you some time to think about what you do want to do. That's when I retrained. So it turned out
a really good example, actually.
Turned out to be a really good thing,
didn't you? And you became a coach.
Yeah.
And now you're coaching women. You'd have never have.
And I love it. And that would have never happened. But every change, even really like painful stuff, if I look back, we've had so many conversations about all sorts of painful stuff on this podcast. I look back now and I look at those years when I was younger with an eating disorder and suicidal and dropping out of university, and they again are all things that I now use in my coaching. And if you hadn't gone through that, you wouldn't be who you are today. That sounds cheesy, but I do think that stuff always has a way of working out as it's meant to work out.
The other thing about this year is it's a sort of year, or it was particularly with the moons at the beginning of the year, a year of endings. So you're supposed to sort of be closing cycles of things. And it was interesting because it was at that time that Rocker died. And David asked me a really poignant question, actually. We're on the sofa here, and he said, because Rocker was my ex's dog.
Yeah.
And I inherited him. He was with us already. And then when he died, I inherited him as the dog. He was my dog. And it was sort of inevitable. And we did heal each other and we helped each other.
Yeah.
So when he died, David said, I know this is a weird one for me as your now partner to ask you, but do you feel that you have now ended the cycle with Steph, with my ex? I'd already ended it.
Yeah.
I'd already firmly ended it. Not necessarily that long ago, but I had. So Rocker leaving was just the ending of my time with him. And I think it did destabilise me. I lost some of my foundation.
Yeah.
And it's not been that long.
Oh, not at all.
And there's been lots of little things that have happened since then. My neighbour's dog dying. My daughter fell down steps at work. All sorts of things that I've had to kind of deal with as well. And I'm keeping busy and I'm dealing with it and everything. But I think deep down, I haven't quite ended that.
Do you think too? I could only speak about my experience of when we lost Monty. And Monty was the dog for me.
Yeah.
And when he went, it was like it was not just saying bye to him, but it was saying bye to, you know, he'd been the dog that was with us when we sort of, you know, he came before the kids, before Mac. So he was like our first child. He was with us when we were, you know, a new couple. Then he was with us when we were trying for a baby. Then he was with us when we bought the house, and he was with us through so many different parts of your life that you then have to almost, you relive them a little bit again, don't you? And then you let go again. And you let go again. And it's
it's a toughie, isn't it?
It's huge.
It's a huge one, you know, and everyone just goes, oh, it's just a dog.
It's not just a dog.
They're never just
I remember when I'm thinking, if anybody says that to me right now, I'm going to poke them between the eyes, because it's not just a dog.
And the interesting thing is, I posted obviously when he died, and the amount of comments, both publicly but also a lot privately, that I got from people that he had affected.
He had so much character.
He had so much character. I took him when he was younger, really up until quite late. I took him everywhere with me. So I took him to festivals, retreats, all sorts. He was like a mascot almost. But he would do this amazing thing, and he would walk to people who needed.
Yeah, he had
some real grounding energy. And people were messaging me, going, "Oh, I remember when," and they sent me photos of things and blah. It was really touching. It was really amazing that this one beautiful dog, in his quiet, solid, large way, just affected people.
But he had such a presence.
He did.
I can't help, when I think of him, I just smile so fondly, because he smiled. He was the only dog I've ever really known that smiled. He was always smiling, always happy, always wagging his, you know, and it was just like, oh, there you are. There's just happy rocker.
It's a huge.
Regardless, you know, and if you think about all the changes that he went through.
Lots.
And yet he was always happy with life.
Always.
And it's just, you used to look at him and think, what a beautiful way to live. Like, you know, if we could all do with being a little bit more like Rocker.
A little bit of Rocker.
Yeah. He just loved life, and he loved, you know, he just loved people.
And he kind of just adapted to change. It was quite a good life lesson.
Just took it all in stride, and he just was happy.
Yeah.
Simple things, and he was beautiful.
Simple things. So the frugal February, that would be the thing, the simple things. Let's take that away, I suppose, from this little sharing circle that we have, which we call the pause menopause.
Yeah, it's been good to chat, hasn't it?
It's been good. My theme for this month is presence.
Ooh,
as in being present.
Yeah, I'm a bit the same. I'm taking the rest of February. I've had some stuff courses and stuff come to an end, and I've told myself, I'm full of cold. I've told myself I just want to take the next couple of weeks to just reground, present with family, present with myself, even when I'm going on dog walks and stuff, not necessarily taking my phone, just walking with the dog and just being with myself and being with Paul and Mac. And I'm just really looking forward to 2 weeks of just that.
Just that.
Yeah.
Okay. Should we leave it on that one then?
Yes.
Be present with yourself, and don't be too hard on yourself. Maybe a nice sort of.
Us women are very hard on ourselves. If
the change is knocking at the door, if you're feeling this thing of I've got to end things, I've got to face things, I've got to declutter. Okay, but maybe just not.
Do it slowly and with a lot of care, a lot of TLC.
TLC. We talked about that before we started to record. We won't see why. But